know that you're coming home early, then what do you do?
Then I have to plan my escape. So another thing that movies don't show you is that the first effort to escape is always self-rescue. It's always on the part of the field officer alone to try to escape. There's no Navy SEAL team, there's no evacuation helicopter, there's no high-speed boat or classy yacht just waiting for you. You have to get yourself across the country's border yourself before you can hope for any kind of evac from there, or what we call an exfil. So I knew that it was on me to come up with some evacuation plan. And I had to come up with an evacuation plan that wasn't going to let the surveillance team know that I knew I was under surveillance.
So you're still in the car at this point?
I'm in between the car and on foot, depending on where I am in the surveillance detection route, right? Surveillance detection routes generally break into 3 phases. It's in the first phase that you suspect that you're under surveillance. It's in the second phase that you confirm it. So it's in this second phase when I confirm I am absolutely under surveillance. That's when I contact GIHI, and that's when I start coming up with my own self-rescue plan.
And then the third phase?
The third phase is a collection phase. You know that you're under surveillance. You know that you've communicated to somebody that you're under surveillance. And now the mission becomes collect as much information as you can about the surveillance team before they realize that they're being collected against.
So you see this car behind you, multiple cars behind you, and the same people following you on foot. Are you writing this down, or are you just trying to memorize it?
At first, it's all memory. And we have a methodology for trying to memorize this stuff. We actually talk about this in the book as well. You start to come up with short codes to describe the people. And the codes that you come up with mean something to you, but they wouldn't mean anything if they came out in an interrogation or if they came out in writing. So like for you, I might call you black t-shirt. A black t-shirt means something to me. So if I see black t-shirt behind me 3 times in the next 45 minutes in 3 different parts of the city, I know that I have an image for what black t-shirt means. But when I write down black t-shirt, nobody else knows what that means. When I see a woman, it was cold, the season that I was carrying out these operations, I saw a woman in earmuffs, so I would call her earmuffs. I saw a guy in a bomber jacket, so I called him bomber jacket. And you just recall these people. You blue sedan, yellow SUV, right? White taxi cab. You start to come up with these nicknames that mean something to you but don't mean anything to anybody else. And then when you get back to a place where you can document your notes in detail, you have a reference point to document in detail. So I start by memorizing. When I got towards the end of my third phase of surveillance detection, I actually wrote down my notes. In the book, it explains I went into a clothing store, and then I started making notes in the clothing store. Presumably, if somebody came in and arrested me at that moment, what they would see is a bunch of notes about clothing, earmuffs and black t-shirts inside of a clothing store. That's not espionage. But then when I was able to actually get back to Wolf with my cell, then I was able to deconstruct what black t-shirt meant. Black t-shirt meant black male with a goatee, approximately 165 pounds, 5 foot, 11 inches, 38 years old.
So how do you get from phase 2 of your process of figuring out if you're being followed to the arcade? Like why did you go to the arcade?
So I went to the arcade because I was trying, in a surveillance detection route, one of the things that you're actually trying to do is called bore or lull your surveillance. You never want to, in movies, it makes it look like you're trying to ditch your surveillance team. You're trying to lose your tail. That's not what professionals do. What professionals do is we drag the tail. We keep the tail with us for as long as possible. And one of the things you do is you make yourself very predictable. You move very slowly. You hang out in public places, which makes it very easy for them to observe you. I was actually going to the arcade to try to collect more information about my surveillance team, but I was trying to give them time and space so they could observe me in a public setting. It backfired because what actually ended up happening is that when I went into the arcade, they lost me. They lost sight of me, which put them into a position where they started panicking to try to find me, even though I was just sitting inside the arcade.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it backfired if they lost you.
It's a terrible thing when they lose you, because when they lose you, they start to panic and they start to assume either they made a mistake or you're a trained officer. If you're a trained officer, if that's the conclusion that they make, they can come in and arrest you. If they lose you, then they start to make mistakes. And when a surveillance team starts to make mistakes, it means that they might stumble across you. They might have two different surveillance people find you at the same time. And for them, that's a scary thing, because for them, they're trying not to be identified. They're trying to be discreet. They're trying to not be seen. So when they, in this case, and in the story that we share in Shadow Cell, when the surveillance team broke into a starburst means they broke ranks to try to find me in the arcade. When they broke ranks to try to find me, they presented themselves to me in the arcade face to face. And it was in that moment that I realized they know that I see them, and I know that they see me, and this is bad.
You locked eyes with them.
Which you're never supposed to do.
You're never supposed to do.
You're never supposed to lock eyes with your surveillance. You're never supposed to lock eyes with anybody who's a threat ever, because that's threatening behavior, right? That's one of the reasons that people share strong eye contact with peers is a show of trust. Well, whenever you're locking eyes with somebody who's a threat, it's a sign of aggression or dominance. So whenever you're being surveilled, you never want to make eye contact with your surveillance team, because your surveillance team will see that eye contact as a threat.
When you say you sort of bumped into them in that arcade, what's the distance?
3 feet.
3 feet? And how long did you lock eyes with each other?
It felt like an eternity. In reality, it was probably 2.5 seconds.
I mean, 2.5 seconds is a long time.
Especially when you're trying not to be seen.
So recreate that moment for me. You're in the arcade pretending you're playing with games. You turn a corner.
It's horrible, man. It's a horrible story. I'm in the arcade. I think I'm doing everything right. I'm like, oh, I'm in the arcade. They watched me come in. They're probably taking a smoke break outside. They've got nothing to worry about. And I'm kind of going from game to game and spending whatever credits that I bought in the arcade. And I go to this dinosaur hunting shooting game, right? Almost like Big Buck Hunter or like Jurassic Park. And I pick up a rifle and I'm shooting at dinosaurs. And I'm just killing time. And then the fucking surveillant comes around the back of the machine looking for me. He comes around the back of the machine and he sees me and I'm holding a fucking gun. And I look at him and he looks at me. And that's when our 2.5 seconds happened. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what just happened? Why did I just see Bomber Jacket come around my video game console and stare at me in the face? And that's when I kind of realized, oh my gosh, like the team is in panic. I can see multiple people in the team. They lost me. They're trying to find me. Bomber Jacket just found me.
What did Bomber Jacket do when he looked at you?
His jaw dropped. He went slack. Like he looked at me and he knew that he had fucked up too. And I looked at him, and in my mind's eye, I was just hoping that I didn't look as stupid as he looked.
In that moment, is it true to say that you should have just looked back at the dinosaur game as fast as you possibly could?
What I should have done is I should have seen a person come around the corner and just kind of stayed in the game. That's what anybody else would have done. Anybody else would have just stayed in the game. They're focused on the game. They don't even realize there are people walking around, right? But the fact that I saw him and then looked at him, and the fact that he saw me and looked at me as two professionals on opposite sides of the playing field, we both made the same mistake. We both made the mistake of showing our recognition to our intended target.
And before we continue, as far as your alias was in that country, you were called Alex Hernandez, right?
Correct.
And you were running a business called Acme Commercial?
Correct.
What was Acme Commercial supposed to be doing as a company?
Acme Commercial was a company that was built to source new disposable goods from foreign countries for transport and distribution across Western countries.
And the intelligence services build a lot of fake businesses, you said.
Yes, it's the easier it is to build a business, the easier it is to collect information. So what we've discovered is that just as anybody with $127 in their pocket can create an LLC, that's about how much money it takes to start an intelligence operation.
It says that the CIA operates numerous fake companies.
The CIA also operates numerous real companies too.
Not just the CIA. I mean, every intel organization has commercial fronts. Every intel organization.
The CIA operates real companies. What does that mean?
There are real companies out there owned and operated by CIA. In-Q-Tel is one of those companies. It's an investment vehicle where CIA invests money and invests in new technology, and all the technology that goes through In-Q-Tel knows that it's going through to CIA.
Okay, that's public though, right?
Correct.
But the ones that aren't public, so the CIA will create a company, and then they will use that company to pretend to be doing something in a foreign land, basically.
But the primary mission is intelligence. This is one of the most fascinating things, not only about CIA, but about all of your first world intelligence organizations. You've heard of what's known as the black budget. The black budget is the budget of discretionary money that can be spent on military and intelligence operations that isn't tied to the taxpayer. So it's a giant pot of money that isn't tied to tax money. So where does that money come from? Part of that money comes from anytime law enforcement or intelligence agencies seize assets. We seize cryptocurrency, we seize drugs, we seize child pornography, right? When we seize that money and we use it for other operations, that's part of the black budget. The other part of the black budget is when an intelligence organization creates a business and that business turns a profit. When that business turns a profit, where does the profit go? It can't go to the case officer. That person's being paid on the US payroll. So all that profit goes into the black budget.
Do you think the CIA has some big profitable businesses that it set up as fronts that just like went really, really well?
I know it does.
Really?
I know it does. The CIA has businesses that it's set up that have gone wildly profitable. CIA also has officers that built these businesses that then were like, why the fuck am I at CIA? And then they leave CIA and they go on to run businesses instead.
I mean, a couple of things popped into my head as you said that. The first was there's obviously a huge conversation at the moment around TikTok, because TikTok was started in China. It's become this massive sort of global success. And I can't think of a better company to have started than a platform like TikTok, where everybody's putting their information and data in and it's tracking your location. So what is your perspective on something like TikTok? Do you think TikTok's was started as a tool to spy?
I don't believe TikTok individually was started as a tool to spy. I believe that what happened is TikTok became wildly popular and the government in China realized, hey, everything in China belongs to the government anyways. We can step in and take advantage of this. That is also a way that CIA and MI6 do business as well. When a company does very well and there's an intelligence benefit, they will approach the company. In a democracy, they can't force the company to cooperate, but in a country like China, they can.
So do you think the social networks, a lot of the big social networks, have been approached by the CIA or the MI6 and asked to give information to them?
I would go a step further and say that they've all been approached and that the vast majority of them cooperate.
Is that a concern for the average person?
Not for the for the average person, that's a benefit.
The average person is not being targeted. I promise you. Like, there's zero interest. And for the federal government and for the intelligence community, there's absolutely zero interest in the average person.
The person who's cheating on their spouse or avoiding $5,000 in taxes or who isn't paying their parking bills. Nobody cares. The federal government doesn't care about that.
Well, you were doing some of that targeting, right?
Right.
So did you ever work with any existing company to give you information?
So all of my data, depending on what country I was working on, had different sources. And some countries had more sources than others, but they're all sources I can't disclose. But there's tons and tons of data that would come into me. And then I worked on a number of cases where I had to get FISA requests.
What's a FISA request?
FISA request is when you want to collect information or take information from somebody who is an American citizen. And I just want to remind people that American citizen, most people who complain about, oh, they're targeting American citizens, are thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
They're looking at themselves in the mirror and thinking, oh, they're targeting American citizens. They're not thinking about the Chinese person who just came over and naturalized. They're not thinking about the Iranian who's been here for a long time and naturalized, right? Like all of those, they're not thinking about, the
Al-Qaeda member who claimed to be a refugee to get here to get some sort of green card.
Right. So American citizenship, a lot of people have that. And some of those people are doing bad things. And some of those people are our adversaries who have infiltrated the United States and are here to gather intelligence to give to our adversaries, or are here to do bad things within the country. And so we have to get FISA requests to get the data on them.
And what does that mean in reality, a FISA request? Does that mean that you can go into their phone?
It means that you have proven a link from that person to something bad, and you've given the court enough evidence to say, hey, look, this person's doing something bad, and we need to gather more data on them. So it just opens the kind of data that you can get on that person.
And what kind of data is that?
You can get on their phone. you can get into their computer. You can get into their private Google accounts. You can get into their private Apple accounts.
Any
you can
kind
get
of data you can get access to. You can now use it to target them.
So you could get access to their private Google accounts, their private Apple accounts without their passwords.
You would hack their passwords or steal their passwords, or Google retains their passwords.
And Google would give you the password.
For most cases, if it comes down to national security, American companies will share details.
Data, yeah.
And that's what a FISA request does, is it's a judicial claim. It's a judicial warrant, essentially, to say you will let this service onto that person's account.
Mm-hmm.
You guys must think that people like me live in a certain state of naivety and ignorance as to what's actually going on.
I wouldn't say it's ignorance or naivety. I would say that it's conditioned into you. You're conditioned to believe that you have privacy.
So the reality that we should realize is that we don't have privacy.
It's
But-
not real.
Privacy is not real.
No. I mean, there's a level. Like,
When you get undressed in a dark room, like that's yours,
Usually. No one's watching.
there's a good chance that you're not being watched by the federal government. If you're getting
That's a good chance.
if you're sending, dirty emails to your girlfriend, that's essentially, it's
No comment.
private on the surface, but not really forever private. Somebody could access those. If you write her dirty notes, that's way more private. because
Especially
you
if she
hand
throws them
it to
away or
her,
burns them.
or burns them. Like I think people put too much confidence in technology and feel too confident in the privacy of technology, because technology, there's really nothing private about it. To an extent, yes. But if you think that nobody can ever look at your stuff, that's wrong.
Do you think the CIA knew you were coming here today?
I think the CIA knew we were coming on Diary of a CEO, and I think they knew that we were going to talk to you about our book.
How do you think they knew that?
Because we know that CIA, as well as other intelligence services, as an example, the United Arab Emirates, we know that they have a dedicated person that sits in their office that watches us.
So how would they know you were coming here today?
Our emails, our emails, our publishers' emails, our own text messages back and forth, listening in on phone calls, any number of things could have happened. We've tried to have a very collaborative relationship with CIA about this book because we know how scared they are. We know how nervous this book makes them. So we're trying to be extra collaborative to give them peace of mind, like, hey, we're not about to go out there and tell the world that you're a bunch of animals and terrible anything. They've actually read the book multiple times, and still they're afraid that we're going to somehow make them look bad, because so many other officers have come out to become authors who make CIA look bad.
There was a couple of other things that we are going to get back to the arcade and what happened next, but there's a couple of other things that sprung to mind when you talked about how people can make real businesses, fake businesses, have various different covers. The next one was, you mentioned Edward Snowden earlier. And in mentioning Edward Snowden, you used him as an example of someone who returns to the country that they were working for the whole time.
So with Snowden, and the Snowden case in specific, right? Whenever somebody flees their own home country,
Yeah.
nobody gives them protection for free. Even in the United States, we don't give anybody protection for free. You have to earn it. You have to share some sort of currency. And that currency may not be cash dollars. That currency might be information. So when Snowden leaked to The Guardian the operations at NSA that were collecting against American citizens, the same American citizens that Jihi was just talking about, right? Nobody cares about Joe Bob. Everybody cares about, the person who's pretending to be an American citizen but is in fact a terrorist threat. When Snowden made his escape, when he fled the United States, he was essentially trading classified information, not just the details of the NSA case that he whistleblew, but other confidential information that he collected specifically as currency to help him basically pay his way through Hong Kong and into China, or into Russia.
And so he lives in Russia now.
He's a Russian citizen. I'm pretty sure he's also received a Russian award for heroism.
And you think he gave secrets to Russia about the United States to get that?
I can
For
almost
sure.
guarantee you, yeah.
Yeah.
What he gave, I don't know, but Russia wouldn't give him that status unless he had given them something in return.
And the other one who sprung to mind as real business, real business becomes successful is the man on everyone's lips at the moment, Jeffrey Epstein.
So Epstein's a fascinating case because Epstein fits all of the primary pillars of a foreign intelligence asset collecting information on American citizens, not an American spy working for someone else. It's funny because people keep thinking like CIA killed him, or people keep thinking that he somehow worked for CIA or maybe even worked for Mossad. What I see is the opposite, that he, if anything, was working independently, maybe even working for several countries, but collecting information on US people.
Is that what you believe?
I think that he could have been that. I don't know that I necessarily believe that it's true.
Because he was a very successful business person. He had lots of successful friends.
Correct.
I was interviewing someone the other day and they said that they met Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein was really, really interested in their physics and science discoveries and wasn't interested at all in the financier stuff that he was pretending to, or he was purporting to be involved in. And this person said to me, it was just really bizarre because he was only interested in the physics and science discoveries we had at Harvard. He wasn't particularly interested in finance to me. And that person was like really shocked by that.
What I've learned working with wealthy people and successful people is that they're often very intelligent and they're often misunderstood. And part of the reason that they have grown as successful as they have grown is because they don't really fit in anywhere else. If they would have fit in somewhere else, they would have been distracted by the area where they fit in. Instead, they had to carve their own interests, their own passions, their own drive. In many ways, when I look at Epstein, that's what I see. I've also worked with many wealthy people who have gone to jail. And when wealthy people go to jail, their whole identity crumbles. And they start to doubt themselves and they start to have these irrational thoughts that sound totally rational to them. I had a client who was very wealthy, who was going to jail after being found guilty of a crime that arguably couldn't be proven, but the court system was set up in such a way that he was found guilty. And he literally thought that it would be better if he cut off all ties to his kids and just went to jail, and then even when he got out of jail, never talked to his kids again. Because that would be better than shaming his children for the rest of their life with a father who went to jail. So when I think about the Epstein case, and I think about a wealthy, powerful man who was having parties with the world's elite, and then he goes to jail and he kills himself, to me, that's not an unbelievable series of events.
The whole thing with the island and the underage sex and all this stuff, people just can't seem to shake the idea that he wasn't extracting information. And then the fact that they won't release the flight logs or a list of the names of people that were frequenting his island or interacting with him also raises another question mark about why wouldn't the US government release that? Why isn't Trump very quick to release that information?
There are lots of secrets that are kept for lots of reasons. And when we talk about, like, if there's anything that we've learned, need to know, the need part is the driving part. What is the need to know? There's plenty of secrets the government has that it tells the American people it doesn't know. It's just lying. Of course it knows, but it's working the common good to say, if you knew what we knew, it could cause panic, it could cause chaos, it could cause any number of things. And in the United States, that is one of the rights and privileges that the federal government has.
So what do you both think happened with the Jeffrey Epstein situation? Because it smells fishy to everybody. The fact that, Trump and Kash Patel and various other White House officials were saying, we're going to release it the minute we get in there. And then they get in there and they say, there's nothing to release. You must, because you understand this much more than I would, you must see like fingerprints of what you think is actually going on there, or the real reasons they wouldn't release it.
When I look at it through a lens of probabilities, the most probable outcome is that somebody in the prison was hired to hurt Jeffrey Epstein. That's the most probable outcome. That somebody outside was watching the Epstein case and knew that Epstein may or may not have compromising information on them, and that wealthy, well-connected person paid to have a hit inside the prison. That's just, to me, that's the most probable result of things happening. That explains the missing evidence, that explains the videotapes, that explains the stories inside of prison where nobody can see what's going on. Also, that's the most vulnerable place for Epstein to have been neutralized. That's how we would have run an operation.
But why wouldn't the government release that? Why wouldn't they say a prisoner killed him?
The government may not know that. Because if a prisoner was paid to do it, they may have covered their tracks well enough. Or they may have paid a prisoner and the guards to also cover the thing up. Jail's a nasty place. People forget how nasty a place jail is. And jails are commercial. They're not federal for the most part. So it's a commercial business that has all sorts of plausible deniability that a federal business or a federal organization, federal building doesn't have. So to me, that's the most probable series of events. There's still a chance that any number of the other conspiracies are true. But when I think of what I've seen, what my clients have seen, what I would do if I was in the shoes of a foreign adversary or a foreign intelligence collection operation dealing with a Jeffrey Epstein type of situation, that's how we would clean it up.
There was a press conference the other day where the reporters asked the Trump administration, does the Department of Justice have any indication that Jeffrey Epstein was working with the US or a foreign intelligence agency, or was he a spy of some kind? And Pam Bondi, who works in the Trump administration, said, to him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that.
Two really important things here. If they did have information on that in an active investigation, she would say, I have no knowledge on that. She would lie to the American public. That's what you have to do if you're trying to build a current case. Because if they acknowledge, we have some reason to believe that he might have been an agent. Now all of a sudden, everybody else out there would start destroying evidence and start hiding evidence and start making the case much more difficult. So if they knew, they would say they don't know.
Do you think he was an agent?
I think he could have been. I think he fits the model of a very good reporting asset. But I don't have enough evidence to say that he was actually one.
Do you think he was?
I mean, I think even if he was, I don't know that it matters, is what I think. Like, even if he was, that doesn't mean that it's connected, because he was a lot of things. So I think people are focused on it because it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it would be interesting if he was, and it would be interesting if there was this conspiracy. I think that's why people are focused on it. But I don't know that it really matters, because in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it could be a lot of things that led,
Why are we talking about a dead guy who's not reporting?
I think it's just the allure of, right? People want answers. Once the curiosity gap's open, people need to fill it with something.
Correct.
Yes.
When what the intelligence community believes is that in any given moment, there are 2 penetrations of every intelligence service. So why are we talking about the dead guy that we don't know about when we're not talking about the dozens of arrests and cases that are made every year of active moles, active penetrations that are inside of our intelligence community?
Every single one of you watching this right now has something to offer, whether it's knowledge or skills or experience, and that means you have value. So take me back to the arcade. You lock eyes with this guy, the guy wearing the, what was he wearing?
Bomber jacket.
The bomber jacket. What happens next?
Once I realized that we had both made the same mistake, he darted off in one direction, and I felt burned. Burned is the term that we use whenever we are spotted, identified as trained intelligence officers. But I didn't want to act on being burned right away, because our training says that just because you believe something to be true, you can't act on that truth. If you act on that truth, then you're verifying to anybody observing that you already know you screwed up. So I kind of ambled around the arcade and played another couple of games, kind of half-handed, half-hearted, just to kill some time before I left, and finished my SDR route and finished my collection and went back to my hotel for the night. The whole process that I go through during the surveillance detection route, the whole process that I go through to evacuate the country safely, is all part of the details that we put inside Shadow Cell. But the feeling that predominated, that dominated my thought process, was just this feeling of failure, this feeling like I was a bad spy. I'm bad at what I do, bad at what I collect. When I think I'm good, I'm not good. It was just this humiliating and humbling experience. And it wasn't helped as I went through the process of writing the book. Because when you write a book, it's cathartic in a way, because it gets all this stuff out. But it's also this black and white kind of stark reminder of all the things that you've done wrong.
What did you do wrong?
Whatever I did that got caught was wrong. If they caught me on my own behaviors, if the mole was the one that identified me to them, then I lost the ability to operate inside of Falcon on that day. I could no longer support the rest of the Shadow Cell. I could no longer support my team. I had a role to play, and I couldn't play that role anymore. And I think that's especially powerful to me because, I mean, I'm not a case officer. I was supposed to be a case officer, but I'm not, because when CIA assessed me for that job, they determined that I wouldn't be good enough.
Okay, so you already had an insecurity there.
And that was the first year at CIA. So even though I built this career and I had a chance to carry out this operation, I got to do these amazing things. All that plays out in the back of my head is I wasn't good enough then. I'm not good enough now.
One of the things that the CIA does is they teach you how to deal with head trash.